Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. JJ Messenger, once again, you make your way through the shadows and the fog and find yourself in the fox den, awakening me from my slumber for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Yet please excuse me for just a few. Much better. A little messy, but we all need to feast. And no worries, a little blood splatter doesn't offend me whatsoever. Without further ado, it is time for JJ Messenger and myself to take a walk into the darkness with the Midnight Society.
Blow, cracks, shadows morph, fangs pierce, bleeds reborn, fury rise, health ignites, burning rays, endless nights.
I looked into the eyes of this Dogman. There was nothing. This thing was an apex predator.
Milk road, cracks, shadows morph, fangs pierce, beast reborn, fury rise, endless nights.
My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. This is the home and the stomping ground of the Midnight Society. And remember, massacres make the dream work. Wait, or something like that, right? Hey, JJ, how we doing tonight, my guy?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
Just been plugging away and, watching a little bit of the Boston Bruins, which is pretty good. Hockey's back up and editing. And hopefully tonight, after I get done linking up with you, I'm going to be able to push out a live music video that I had been working on with my little brother and a couple friends of mine. And we wanted to push it out before Halloween. So should be out tonight, probably when everyone else is curled up and sleeping, because I'm definitely up pretty late. But heck yeah, what have you been up to?
Oh, I've been working my usual jobs, working on various projects. Like you, I want to start a book. And start a book on the would-be Sasquatch encounters I've been having. Although I'm not sure if I should just stick with the word unknowns. I'll think about it.
That's great stuff. Yeah, you should let me know when you start plugging away more on that, because potentially I could maybe help you out, but I could also use some help too. I do know that my book obviously is constantly going to be updated with new stuff, but also at a point in time, I have to publish it while I can still consistently update it. Meaning, say if you came over and you wanted to see the whole file and I just updated it yesterday, well, it's always organically growing like an environment, but I do want to break it down and at some point publish it into different regions like the Northeast, the land between the lakes, etc. So,
Oh, very, very nice. There are many options to get published. Obviously publishing houses aren't that receptive, but there are many options to go through.
no, for sure, you'll have to keep me posted. And before we start diving into some stuff tonight, I did see, and you also had told me, yet the audience will be unaware of this, you had a chance to sit down with a radio station. Would you like to update everybody on that?
Oh, what an awesome interview. This guy, Morgan Cunningham, he's a newscaster for WTIC radio in Hartford, Connecticut. Oh, such a great guy. I approached him with this idea. Hey, you like his show is called Spotlight Connecticut. And I said, you like Connecticut themed shows? What about the Winston Wild Man? That's an old legend from the town next over from where I live, Winston, Connecticut, about a cryptid, a wild, hairy man that would haunt the woods near Winston, Connecticut. And I was thinking maybe we could just talk about the legend, but he found out I was doing like a modern Bigfoot research and search. And he was like, hey, let's throw it all out there, everything, and the kitchen sink. So we had a great interview, and he played a lot of the audio clips I have of unknown and incredibly odd vocals, and it was a real good show.
That's great stuff, my friend. And heck yeah, congratulations on that. And if you do have a link, toss it to me and I'll be able to put it up in your older videos we've done together, but also any new ones that we have popping out too, man.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken. Thank you.
For sure. And did you ever get a chance? Remember how a little while back we spoke about Cold Hollow, Vermont? I just wanted to ask you again after maybe having that sink in a little bit, if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I looked it up on the map, and boy, that's way up there in northern Vermont in that extremely mountainous area, Mount Mansfield, not that far away. Wow, what a wild and rugged territory, you know. I would imagine there's a lot of caves and a lot of cave systems because the mountains are very rugged. There's extremely rugged rock outcroppings, uh, a lot of cover for would-be cryptids to hide in. Yeah.
That place is pretty interesting for sure. And that's excellent. You got a chance to look at the map. So you must have seen, well, I would have to say the most, I guess, prevalent or relevant city, they would call it, in that area. That's pretty isolated, though. I mean, according to a couple of the people I spoke to and one of the girls, she said it took around, give or take, at least an hour plus, usually an hour to an hour and a half to get to anywhere that would have any sort of nightlife that most people would consider to be something you would do after hours.
Yeah. The young people must suffer up there big time.
Also, too, what's super interesting is, how the Sinocephali around every culture lived up in the mountains. And again, like you just said, heavily mountainous area with caves and such. Super intriguing and falls into a lot of the stuff we're working on.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you could see them doing a Hills Have Eyes sequel up there.
Mhm. Also, have you heard of the Bennington Triangle? You're also near that area as well, kind of, correct?
Bennington? No, no, I haven't. I'm aware of the Bridgewater Triangle, which inserts Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. But I was unaware of Bennington having a triangle.
Yes, so the Bridgewater Triangle is, pretty well known, obviously, in the New England area, and there's a lot of bizarre stuff that's going on down there. Everything from werewolf sightings to, wow, I mean, thunderbirds, you really name it, and
Yeah,
it's there.
Thunderbirds and ghosts and UFOs and cults and oh, everything in the kitchen sink. Yes, and
Yes. So the Bennington Triangle, though, is a region in southwestern Vermont, and it's also known to be called the Glastonboro Mountains. And there have been many disappearances, strange sightings of human-like canines, Sasquatch entities, and other unusual occurrences.
wow, I'll have to be looking this up.
Yeah, it's a really interesting place. A ton of dense forest and really unpredictable terrain all around it. So people could obviously get lost on their own, but in the mist and the darkness of the forest, people used to swear up and down that they saw basically Sasquatch-like creatures and Dogman-like creatures, and people were going missing, people were getting ripped apart, really strange stuff. So that's also an area that at some point you might want to look into, and we could talk a little bit more about that as well. But that's right near your neck of the woods too. So
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
yeah, it's crazy stuff. But tonight I have some relatively new things that have been submitted to us. And, well, I just figured we should tap on some of these. And they're not necessarily new encounters by any means. I just mean new to being either not able to be debunked or fully verified. So they're just kind of sitting in a 50-50. Well, our first one here is in 1937. Robert Fortney has an encounter with what he believes to be, fast forward, what we call the infamous Michigan Dogman. The 17-year-old was out fishing along the Muscogee River near Paris, Michigan. After spending the early day small game hunting, Fortney claimed that a pack of 5 seemingly large feral dogs had come out of the trees, moving toward him as though they were going to attack. As the dogs moved closer to him, Fortney fired a shot from his rifle into the air. At the shock of the noise, the dogs turned to run back into the forest, all except one extremely jet black, large looking wolf like dog with shockingly bright blue eyes. Paws, which is something that comes into line with almost every female encounter. Usually they're a lighter encounter. I mean, I'm assuming maybe males can too, but usually almost every female encounter they have blue eyes. He fires another shot towards the black, dog-like creature to try and scare it off. It turns and bolts away. In 1987, an interview of his encounter, Fortney once again explained what happened after the last shot. He says it turned, reared up on its hind legs, stared at him, and that it was so angry, it almost seemingly thought to smile at him. He swears it was smiling at me before it turned and ran off.
Oh, the infamous canine grin that we had discussed before. That is really something. And it's a common thread, a very common thread.
Creepy for sure. What do you think about all that stuff right there?
Sounds like a very compelling encounter. Sounds like he was telling the truth. Now, pre-Depression era in our country, people were very conservative. You know, they were very conservative with what they said and how they were seen, how people regarded them. Your reputation was extremely important in those days. Sounds like a very legitimate encounter.
That's an interesting encounter for sure because it's another old one, which doesn't mean it has to have more clarity or more capability of being relevant. But again, I feel like back then it was way more taboo than really now to kind of speak about stuff like that. So classic,
Oh yeah.
infamous Michigan Dogman right there.
Oh yeah, that's the thing with that era. You had to be extremely careful with what you said publicly because it could make or break you. I mean, this is before the modern era with our cancel mentality, but it's a different era, but people were pretty judgmental, so you had to be extremely careful and often extremely truthful with what you said.
Yeah, isn't that the truth, my friend? And I have another pretty interesting one for you right here. If I can bust it open, let's find this. All right. So this occurred February 2017, 5:30 a.m. near, well, of course, the infamous LBL. This individual, he claims he got up to head out to the kitchen. There, by the bay window over the sink, what seemingly was a massive canine-like creature was staring back at him right through the window. He claims this happened in Clarksville, Tennessee. Once realizing what he had seen, he slowly backed up, as did the creature.
Wow. A Dogman window peeker. How about that? I know window peeking is an extremely common thing with Sasquatch, and but Dogmen, wow, that is chilling indeed.
I could just only imagine. I mean, last night I got up and obviously in between our houses, it's, there's lights, but it's still fairly dark. And there was seemed to be a decent white-tailed deer, and I just saw his tail like flip up. But again, I mean, just in general, animals are big. I mean, it's not like I stand by deer all the time, but I was like, yeah, that's a pretty decent sized deer, but also catches you off guard too, because as stated, we definitely end up sometimes tricking ourselves into thinking things are occurring for sure, you know?
There was a time when I was having unknown activity outside my house and a lot of noise and racket and some odd vocal sounds. So I would set up a baby monitor and put it outside the window ledge. And there was something extremely unusual that was grumbling around vocally, not typically a human sound nor like a bear. And this is a fairly humorous story, but I was walking by the bathroom and the door to the bathroom was open, and there was a strange shape in the window that I saw peripherally, through the corner of my eye. And I was thinking, is this a window peeker, right? But I had the most strange compulsion not to really look. So I never gave it a good look, right? I never actually turned around and looked at it fully. And to this day, I kind of kick myself like, was there something in that window or not?
Again, really good question and pretty creepy stuff. And also last night while I was going to bed and just working on things, there was some really interesting indigenous encounters with Sasquatch. And again, I still sit on the side of being wary with them, meaning obviously there's going to be different, every animal or person has different personalities. But man, some of the things they spoke about was absolutely just straight up craziness with these things like stealing their women and children, stealing their food, just trying to just be absolute maniacs, trying to battle them, having no problem just consuming over and over again and pillaging. So it's interesting because then you have other accounts where people claim that they were more docile, but I don't know. I wouldn't really encourage anyone to have, I guess, any sort of interaction with anything like that. That's just my thoughts on the process, because when you have an interaction with something such as, I don't know, say like a raven outside or a blue jay or something like that, right? There is no aspect of, sure, I guess it could pluck your eyes out, etc. But if it's allowing you to throw food at it and it's coming that close, its behaviors already and such, but there's no sort of documented behaviorisms for the most part of how Dogman and Sasquatch are going to be acting.
You were saying exactly what I used to say. I was like a ghost investigator for the longest time and associated with a lot of ghost investigators. And I used to say, I'm not going to go looking for Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Dogman, or anything like that because, I want to keep my two arms and my two legs intact. Generally, when you go into a haunted house, the chances are you're not going to be dismembered or eaten.
Right? That's very true again. So what do you think about I don't deal or really delve into the occult at all. I'm supposed to at some point be talking to Dennis Carroll, and he specialized in a lot of that. Yet I did have a chance to talk to William White about some of that when we talked about Castle Huska, which that episode will be coming out pretty soon. Yet in all these supposed cursed books or these books that Heinrich Himmler and the occult members of the Dirty Stash, who I'm referring to, and that
Yeah.
Tyronic individuals, yes, all had access to pretty much, most likely, probably all these books. And in these books, you can do anything from supposedly speak to angels, to demons, to muster up these entities that could be classified as Jersey Devils, or you can supposedly become or manifest vampires, werewolves, etc. Interesting stuff. We're not talking about Dogman. We're talking about werewolves. And
Yeah.
I pretty much was wondering what you know about potentially any of those books, I guess, and how you would feel about that really potentially being linked to it, because supposedly a ton of those books are quote unquote cursed, and I have no desire to get anywhere near any of them. Yet I was just watching something on History Channel where they were talking about a lot of those, and I don't know, I just figured I'd mention that to you.
There's my friend David Considine, who's a traditional Catholic demonologist. He would say that there's like medieval illustrations, and there may be some illustrations associated with Aleister Crowley, who everyone knows from the famous Ozzy Osbourne song, along with other pop culture references. Aleister Crowley, a very famous occult practitioner back in the day. These illustrations would involve supposed demonic manifestations that would occur after they do rituals and, incantations and various forms of conjuring. And one of the illustrations, now this is, before the Bigfoot flap and Patterson Gimlin and all this. One of the illustrations of a demonic manifestation would look like a traditional Bigfoot, with the caveman style face and the extreme hair cover and the practically no neck, the head sitting on the shoulders. And yeah, the idea that the occultists were seeing like Bigfoot style manifestations and illustrating them before there was even a term Bigfoot.
Yikes. And again, that falls into the category of pretty much what I was saying about I don't really think all the Sasquatch are that good potentially either. And some of those illustrations, as you mentioned as well, you have some things that look like werewolves, and like Dennis Carroll was saying, and I actually tend to now fall into this. I at first had no really belief too much into the werewolf aspect. There's not really any sort of evidence, but yet once I was introduced to some of that occult stuff, and Dennis was mentioning that, I sit probably 50-50 now. I do believe the dog man exists, but when it comes to werewolves, I was at a probably 80-20 before, but now I'm 50-50 because there's some pretty screwed up stuff in some of those books, and some of the things that those occult members like Heinrich Himmler and all those gnarly people were doing. So, well, I don't know. I mean, it sounds
You
like, and also from a lot of those illustrations and things, that, well, a werewolf would fall into line to a lot of those potential summonings and things. And what's also really interesting about Crowley as well, though, same thing with like Einstein and such, is these people, it's really interesting because they're considered insane but geniuses at the same time, like really all at the flip of the coin, though. So, for example, even though Crowley was doing some crazy stuff, a lot of people were saying that for as smart as he was, that he was also insane and that he had a mental issue and was also prescribed at a point in time when doctors apparently thought that that was a good thing to prescribe to people for medication and such.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah,
Wow.
so he had these issues going on, okay? And it's not like he was fully in the right frame of mind. So he was also very isolated growing up and was pretty much, I guess, strange to an extent. And people considered him unpredictable and that he was violent to an extent. So I don't know. There is, again, probably a 50-50 chance that he straight up could have just imagined all that stuff in his dang head. And you know how people hear voices today? Well, he could think he was hearing voices talking to him. And back to the Einstein thing again, a lot of his theories weren't true. And for everyone that was, there were a few that weren't. And he was borderline insane too. A lot of people don't, like I said, understand that genius and insanity pretty much are a very thin line, kind of like cocky and confident.
Yeah, yeah. You opened up a lot of topics there. Um, when it comes to mental illness, hallucination, and delusion, sometimes there's not a clear boundary between that and supernatural phenomena. Sometimes they overlap. I was involved in a situation where a family had a schizophrenic relative, and they recorded her rambling in her private bathroom so they could present her doctor with evidence that, she was slipping under some delusions once again and hallucinations. Uh, as it turns out, though, on the recording, there were other voices responding to her. And, this is before there were common cell phones and such available. She had no phones on her, and there were just other voices recorded, which opens up the whole can of worms. Where does mental illness end, and where does the supernatural begin? You'll often notice that when people are criminally insane and they're hallucinating voices, the voices are usually demonic in nature and are always prompting them to do extremely evil and violent things. Like, the voices aren't telling them to make a ham sandwich, bring it to your neighbor, and put a pickle on top. The voices are saying, go over, lop off the head of your neighbor and eat his intestines.
Yeah, that's again really interesting and tough to kind of all figure out, which is why recently Robert Prevo, we got to join our science team, and he specializes in mental health, which is really good because now we have somebody that can, I don't want to say fact check, but just honestly sit back and when they listen to people, just have a different opinion about it, because there's times where, I don't know, I'm like, yo, dude, this is completely whack as heck. But again, I don't have experience with mental health in regards of that, meaning I'm not educated on how to handle that or how to pick up on that. So in actuality, even though I'm like, that's gnarly, dude, yeah, that's a whack. Well, I can't really put my stamp of approval of saying that's whack until obviously other people sit down and look at it. But when you have somebody that specializes in mental health, that's like, yeah, it's definitely whack. Just brings
Oh,
another level to it, the clarity. And man, it's unfortunate, dude, but people hallucinate, bro, and people unfortunately get put in bad places in life and make up things just to try to understand and accept the situations that are occurring to them. So some people turn to substances, others could have imaginary friends. And I mean, I'm not, people could think that's amusing, but it's truthful, man. I mean, those are what hallucinations are. You could literally have somebody that's having a psychotic break standing beside 5 other people, and those people could not be seeing anything that this individual is seeing. Okay. Yet to that individual, it's real as heck. Yet to everybody else that's standing there, they're like, yo, what is this person insane right now?
oh yeah, yeah. Like the movie A Beautiful Mind, the famous mathematician.
Hmm.
And you're kind of shocked when you find out in the movie that these comrades, these friends of his, are not real. Uh, I had a schizophrenic friend in college who was diagnosed schizophrenic in her youth, and her delusions weren't so dramatic or extravagant. They were, what she would end up doing is seeing colors flash in front of her, like blue, purple, yellow. And she would put this paper bag over her head so she could watch the colors. And that's as severe as her hallucinations got. You know, uh, Pretty benign, a brain malfunction. How you process the stimulation of your brain, where you're processing what your senses are taking in. We all censor out certain input and accept other input. And with
Yeah.
schizophrenics, it's sort of like what we experience when we're half asleep. I'm sure you've experienced this, where you're dozing and you're half asleep, and then you think someone's yelling out for you, and you're like, what? But no one called for you.
Yeah,
It's
it's funny you
sort of like
said
what
that.
they experience.
Isn't that the truth? Because it's funny you said that before we do let you kind of wrap this up here and get back to what you need to be doing. I've had times where ex-girlfriends of mine that I haven't spoke to in so long, that what seems to be so real to me, as if I'm sitting here on the beach with them and I can see their hair moving and I swear they're smiling, you feel it all. Everything seems so real, but then you wake up, right? I'm in my room. I haven't talked to that girl in quite a long time. And there is none of that. It was just a dream, which to an extent obviously is triggering your mind to believe it's real. So that's all I'm trying to say is it's not that some of these people aren't really seeing what it is they're seeing. It's just some people are having psychotic breaks or are using drugs and things. And it's something that people just need to accept and understand and not always just believe everything because, all right, researchers such as yourself, myself, Jessica Jones, Barbara Hartman, Cryptid Warfare, my whole squad. I'm gonna miss like names here, so I'm sorry I can't say them all. But everyone that's part of my Midnight Society, everyone like that, I love all y'all. Great people. I've met some of the most beautiful people like that. Yet when it comes to interviewing supposedly witnesses or people that I've had encounters or things like that, I'm not gonna front, man. I've come across some of the most slimy people, dude, that I've ever met in my life. Meaning when I back check some of these people, I realize that they're shady as heck, dude. And you just look at some of the things that they've been maybe caught up in, like running scams and all this stuff. And yet they're sitting here now presenting like supposed cryptid evidence and stuff like that. And that's just super unfortunate, man. Is for some reason in the cryptid field, dude, there's just some really low down dirtbag people too, man. That is so unfortunate because they just purposely try to distort everything that all the good people are trying to do.
Oh, isn't that horrible? That really gets under my skin because, okay, there's a handful of people in the cryptid field that are making good money. I mean, good money, right? And then everyone thinks, oh, what a sham that is. I'm going to elbow my way into this. And, they'll do the video fakes with the costumes, and
Hmm.
they'll do props. And some of the props can be beautiful and elaborate. I mean, there are some fakes that you could do that upon glimpsing it, it's very convincing, but it's only going in depth where you see the holes, you see the problems with it.
So true, my friend. And I mean, I'm seeing some stuff like this now floating around with what's occurring down in Tennessee and Kentucky and all those areas, which is super unfortunate with the disasters. But there's all these AI images floating around of supposed portals. And man, I literally whipped open one of my AI apps and typed in portal over forest during a sunset. I pretty much like mimicked one of those pictures. And it's just mind boggling to me again, like why people just take things like that as credible. And you just see so many people just like eating it up. And it's just like, have we as a race, just humans in general, lost acceptance on reality to an extent? I mean, are we really this far gone that we want to believe every crazy theory out there, even though it might have been debunked that bad, or we just want to turn on the facts just because they're not exciting enough? Because that's really what it seems like, man.
That's a big problem with me because a lot of my research, in comparison, can be dry and boring. And and sometimes when you're trying to root yourself into the reality of what you're collecting, it can be dry and bare bones, and the imagery is horrible. And if you go to an AI generator and you put in, like you said, portal during sunset or whatever, you can come up with some dramatic stuff, and people
Hmm.
will eat it up.
Yep. So, but now it is what it is, but that's just why we got to keep on plugging away and trying to actually get out the real information. I mean, there are unknown vocalizations, unknown tracks, yes, unknown sightings that are occurring, but with all the junk out there, it's just straight up bizarre. So thanks for popping in tonight again, man, and hanging out with us and trying to bring some sort of clarity to what's occurring because, like I said, great researchers out there, but just so many trolls, man, trying to put in the work. But at the end of the day, man, I used to be a super troll back in the day, not meaning, examples like that, but I used to just troll people I didn't like, man, when I was younger and stuff. Or if I felt like somebody would say something stupid, I'd troll, whatever, dude. I'm not over about that stuff really anymore. But moral of the story is you can't troll a troll, okay? So, yeah, when people are like posting that stuff and saying that, I'm like, yo, man, straight up trolling, dude,
Yeah, they're looking to push buttons.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. If you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, share it, and feed the algorithm. And I will catch you very soon.